Well, it is official. Mississippi State has hired a new offensive line coach, Will Friend, who played and was a 4-year starter at Alabama and was later named to Alabama's all-decade team, the team of the 90s. Began his coaching career in high school, worked as a GA at Georgia. He's had a bunch of different stops, including offensive line coach at Tennessee and offensive coordinator at Colorado State from 2015 until 2017. Offensive line coach at Georgia, 2011 to 2014. He was recently hired by Memphis to come in and be the offensive line coach on Ryan Silverfield's staff, but was swept away from Memphis by Mississippi State to come and join Zach Arnett's staff as offensive line coach. Considered to be an outstanding recruiter, veteran coach of the SEC. This is a nice addition to the staff for Zach Arnett. Now, Michael Borky and I heard Brian Haydad say earlier today that Will Friend has been loosely attached at the hip to Mike Bobo at a lot of stops along the way. And Brian Haydad also said to you that if you indeed get an announcement that Will Friend is coming to join Zach Arnett's staff, that it could signal that Mike Bobo is also going to be joining the staff. We don't know that those things are 100% tied together. We will have to wait and see. What do you make, though, of, as a standalone, Will Friend being added to this staff?
Been around the SEC, obviously very familiar with it. Has held good jobs, known as a good recruiter, Mississippi guy.
Yeah.
I always find it interesting that, I always wonder how Mississippi guys will recruit when they didn't go to school in Mississippi. That's just something I always wonder about. Like, how do you sell them? You went to Alabama. Why shouldn't I go there? But that being said, at every stop he's been to, he's been a good recruiter, and I'm sure he'll be one here for Mississippi State. So on the surface by itself, this is a good offensive line hire. I liked Mason Miller. I thought he had done a great job the past few years with Mississippi State's offensive line. I thought they navigated the departure of Charles Cross this past year really well, and navigated some injuries in the middle of the season and put together what was a really good offensive line for Mississippi State. But apparently he'll be moving on as well, and Will Friend will take that spot.
Friend out of high school was a parade All-American at Neshoba Central, and mentioned a second ago went on to be a 4-year starter at Alabama, where he graduated in 1998. There is one thing to me that is kind of interesting here, Haydad. Zach Arnett has, before hiring an offensive coordinator, made changes to his staff and has brought in an offensive line coach and a wide receivers coach. Now, it's two guys that are thought very, very highly of in the profession. And Will Friend to coach the offensive line, Chad Bumpus, Mississippi native, Mississippi State standout to come back and coach wide receivers. But it's a little bit of an interesting dynamic where you're saying, hey, come be the offensive coordinator, and by the way, the staff is already filled out, as opposed to you're going to be the offensive coordinator. Let's talk a little bit about who you would like to work with, what, even if it's not specific people, what type of people you would like to work with.
And like I think I said this the other day, no offensive coordinator is going to come in and just get full autonomy to hire whoever he wants, right? The head coach is going to put together his staff.
Right.
And I think with Bumpus, because he's a Bulldog and has been trying and wanting to come back, that's a hire that was kind of made independent of the offensive coordinator. I can't help but think that especially at this part of the process, as we're getting closer, you've got official visitors on campus this weekend from the transfer portal. I can't help but think that this hire was made in conjunction with or with the knowledge of a potential offensive coordinator. Now, like I said earlier, Friend and Bobo are very, very connected to each other. They've worked together many times. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's for sure Mike Bobo, because Will Friend is a good offensive line coach. He's held numerous jobs. His resume kind of speaks for itself. Most offensive coordinators would be pretty happy to bring a guy like Will Friend onto their staff. So nothing's ever done till it's done. I definitely think it's it's a hint towards Mike Bobo, but we'll see. But I have to think that at this point in the process, whoever they're going to hire, approve the hire of Will Friend.
Yeah, and doesn't it feel like we would be naive to think that while Zach Arnett was courting Will Friend to come and be his offensive line coach, they had conversations about, okay, well, who's going to be my boss? I mean, I know you're ultimately my boss because you're the head coach, but in terms of day-to-day, who am I going to be working with? Who am I going to be working for in terms of a coordinator on this side of the ball?
Absolutely. The questions would come from both sides. You would think Friend would want to know, because Friend, has to know, hey, what am I going to be? Am I a fit for how they want to coach the offensive line here? There are different ways to coach offensive linemen, and if you're if I coach this way and we're going to teach them that, then what am I doing here?
And don't forget
that's
about
why Mason
personal.
Miller fit in really well with. What now?
Don't forget about the personal too. If a guy that's been around as long as Friend has, what if there's somebody that they could hire that he doesn't want to work for personal reasons?
You could have an anti-Mike Bobo situation. He's like, wait a minute, you're hiring that guy? No, never mind. So, that's twice, by the way, in 3 years, State has poached a coach that had taken another job. Zach Arnett being the other one.
Where had he agreed to go?
He had agreed to be the defensive coordinator at Syracuse.
Oh, that's right.
And got offered the Mississippi State job and took it.
Was going to be on Dino Babers' staff at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Decided to come to the SEC instead. And that's worked out well for Zach Arnett because he is now a head coach in the Southeastern Conference.